Welcome to Twilio Tip Tuesday. Today's tip is using Twilio Functions from Twilio Studio. Twilio Studio is a simple drag and drop interface for creating Twilio applications, and using Twilio Functions, you can harness the power of serverless functions written in Node.js. In this tip, we'll create a Twilio Studio flow that allows you to request a quote of the day using a text message. We'll fetch that quote using JavaScript that we'll write in Twilio Functions and return it back to the user. We'll start inside of the Twilio Studio dashboard by creating a new flow. We'll name the flow quote of the day and hit next. I'm going to start from a basic empty flow. Our quote of the day flow will start with an incoming text message. So we will be responding off the trigger where it says incoming message. What we want to do on an incoming text message is respond with a new text message. So we'll set this to be the initial response. And we just want to say that we're fetching a quote for our user. So that's all we need for that message. And then we just have to connect the incoming message trigger to the initial response widget. The reason we're responding with an initial message is the Twilio function that we're going to write makes a call to a REST API, which could take a few seconds. So it's helpful here to return a message immediately to the user so that they don't think that they're just sitting around waiting for something that's never going to come back. If we're actually doing work, we should let them know that. Over in the Twilio Functions dashboard, we're going to create a new function. We'll start with a blank function here. So we use the blank template. I'll hit create. And then we'll give the function a name of quote of the day and a path of QOTD. We don't need the code that's here inside of this function, so we'll get rid of it and write our own code. The first thing we're going to need is a module called got that we'll use to make the HTTP request to the API that we're going to get the quotes from. What is the API that we're getting the quotes from? Well, there's a thing called quotes.rest, and this returns a quote of the day at a simple get request to /QOD. The response is a simple JSON object. It returns an array of quotes, and inside of that, there's a quote and an author. The endpoint for our usage is quotes.rest /QOD.json. This will return a JSON object that contains the quotes and the author for the quote, which we'll be using from Twilio Studio. Back in our function, we'll call got, passing in the URL to the quotes.rest API. Then after we get a response, we are simply going to parse out the JSON to get the response body. Inside of that response, there is a quote. So we want to get access to that. And that's going to be QOTD.contents.quotes. And remember, it was an array. So we need to grab the first object out of that array. Now we can simply pass that back to our Twilio Studio flow by passing the quote in the callback. Hit save to deploy your function, and once it's deployed, we can head back to Twilio Studio and make the call to the function. Okay, back in our Twilio Studio flow, we need to make a call to the Twilio function that we just wrote and get the quote back into our Studio flow. We'll do that by pulling in this run function widget and dropping it right beneath the initial response widget that we created earlier. Underneath function URL, we can click the dropdown and select the quote of the day function that we just created, and we'll hit save. And that'll update with the URL for the function, so you don't have to memorize what the URL was for it. And then we just connect the dots here by dragging from sent down to the widget. So now, once the text message is sent from the initial response, as soon as that goes out to the user, we make a call to the Twilio function, which will make a request out to quotes.rest. Once we get a response from the Twilio function, we're going to want to return the quote with the author back to the person that texted into the hotline. So we'll drag out a send message once again, and I'll align these again. And we're going to rename this one send quote. I noticed that we didn't give our function widget a name, and that's going to cause us a problem in a second. So let's rename this fetch quote. We're going to need to refer to this widget, so giving it a name makes that possible. So when the function call is successful, we'll go down into the send quote widget, and in the send quote, we need to give it a message body to send back to the user. We'll say, here's your quote, and the quote, we can actually access that out of the fetch quote widget by using the liquid template syntax. So we'll do two open curly brackets, and then there's a widgets property that has fetch quote inside of it. And what we want is fetch quote parsed to parse the object that was passed back from the Twilio function. Inside of that object, we have the quote, and we'll put that in quotes since it is a quote after all. And then we'll also specify the author that wrote it. So this is going to be widgets.fetch.parsed.author. That's all we need here. So we'll hit save, and we can see that it's going to send back, here's your quote, the quote that we passed back from the function, and the author that came back from the quote from the quotes.rest service. I'll hit save on that widget, and I'll hit publish to publish the flow. Okay, now that we've created the Twilio Studio flow and created the function that calls the REST API, we need to hook the Studio flow up to a phone number so that our users can text into that number. Let's head over to the phone number console and buy a phone number. I'm going to search for a 267 area code phone number. That'll be a Philadelphia number, and I'm going to buy the first one that pops up. I don't really care what number it is. I just want it to be from Philly because I'm from Philly. We'll buy the number, and then we'll click Setup Number. And then down here where it says Messaging, we'll change a message comes in to Studio Flow. And then we can pick our quote of the day flow that we've been creating all this time. We'll hit save, and the number is updated. That means it's ready to receive a text message. If all goes well, we should be able to get a quote of the day from that phone number. Okay, I'll take out my phone and send a message to 267-214-0156. Doesn't matter what I send, so I'm just going to send hi, fetching a quote. And then we get a quote back. It says, vision without action is a daydream. Action without vision is nightmare. That's a Japanese proverb, so that's the author. Everything's working. All right, we did it. We created a Twilio Studio flow that responds to an incoming text message, makes a call to a Twilio function, which fetches a quote of the day and returns it back to the user. We're really just scratching the surface of what you can do with both Twilio Studio and Twilio functions. If you want to learn more, we've got a bunch of videos on the channel that'll tell you how to do it. And until next time, I'm out of here.